Well, welcome to Lark Rise Farm from me and Ernie here, who can't be bothered to wake up. We'll shortly be going on a trailer ride, so get ready to hop on. On the trailer ride, we'll be looking at lots of exciting things. There'll be the hedge laying that took place a few years ago. We'll be looking at my crops, and we'll be looking at the absolute beautiful water meadows that are full of wildflowers at the moment. Well, we've stopped here near some experimental plots of about 10 years ago where we were looking at all different combinations of wildflowers for grass margins. There are about 20 different combinations, and the idea is that rather than having natural regeneration, so the edge of the field just comes up with all sort of undesirable weeds, that you actually plant indigenous species that will help the environment. We've now moved on to a section of hedge that was laid in the National Hedge Laying Championships of 2018. I'm standing here with a little map of all the different styles that went on, and you can see them yourself, but we've got Welsh, Somerset, Devon, Dorset, South of England, Yorkshire, Derbyshire, Midlands, etc., Lancashire. Where I am here is in front of a Yorkshire style, and that has sort of a post and rail in amongst it. You can just about see it there, I think. And apparently, so I'm told, don't blame the messenger, but this came about that many of the smallholders in Yorkshire also work down the pits, and they they reused pit props, or it could have been they stole pit props, and they used these to reinforce the hedges they'd laid. So they are mimicking the pit props they would have used when the style started many years ago, and it's now forms a part of the Yorkshire style, having supplementary fencing within the actual hedge itself. We've now stopped by this section of hedge that was had a different style. There's been about possibly 8 different styles that are done in the country. This particular one is the West Country style, and where this section, an earlier section, was left about 4 feet high, even getting nearer to 2 meters. This area is, when it was laid, was about the height of a Labrador, and the reason they've done it this way is down there they have large banks, and the hedges grow on top of the banks, so the hedge doesn't need to be as high to keep the livestock the other side of the hedge. So although this is pathetically low, if it were in the West Country, it would have possibly a 3-foot bank, and then the hedge is on top of the bank. The purpose of laying the hedge is quite simple from a farming point of view. It's a means of keeping your stock in, so you don't need to put a post and rail fence, that you just cut the hedge, lay it, and it becomes impenetrable. We don't actually have a great deal of livestock here, but there are lots of wildlife benefits of laying a hedge. It sort of rejuvenates the hedge, so you get a lot of new growth. And also, where the hedge was growing this way, and then you lay it so it is literally parallel to the ground, it gives lots of opportunities for birds to nest on the parallel branches. So over my right shoulder we have a mature hedge that has never been cut in the 20 years that we've owned this land. When we took the land over, it had there wasn't actually a hedge there, it had just been cut every year down to nothing, and then it's regenerated, but it's now 20 feet high, and basically that hedge has got lots of it's got blackthorn, hawthorn, elder, wild rose immediately behind me, so lots of different species. When the hedge gets that big, there's only certain species like it, and the hedge on my left that was laid 2 years ago would have been that large, and so the species you get on the farm are species that like big hedges. Now by laying the hedge that we have here, so it's about 4 feet high, or the straggling bits go up to 5 feet, it then encourages birds that like nice, neat, tight, low hedges. But the species that would nest in big, overgrown hedges will not like it. But the beauty of the CRT, we've got one habitat here, tightly cut hedge, and over there we have a hedge that's never been cut in all of its life, and will be habitat for different species. Well, I'm standing up here with quite a nice panoramic view of Lark Rise Farm. This particular part we call the 98 land because it was bought in 1998. This crop immediately behind me is winter barley, which it has to be said has got a healthy population of wild oats in. We've actually split the field into two to give us greater biodiversity, and the lower half, which you may be able to pick out, the different colour green, that is winter wheat, and then the CRT land stops at the trees at the sort of lowest point of the land, and in fact just the other side of the trees we've got a very pretty water meadow that's full of buttercups at the moment. The beauty of the CRT land is we have what we call a mosaic of crops. I'm here in the field we call Blackthorns, and this one has been dedicated to experimental cultivation techniques. The strip I'm in here has been direct drilled, so there's been no cultivation of this at all. And the beauty of this is, because you're not disturbing the soil, all the invertebrates sort of thrive in the soil, and you get a lot of worm activity. So last year, the residue of last year's crop is sitting here on the surface, and so this not only retains moisture where we've had a very dry spell, and you can see there's still moisture in the soil here. Any spilt seeds from last year's harvest will still be here, and this was the field where we had the flock of in excess of 50 corn buntings, and they were feeding on here because there's still abundance of food. The beauty of the direct drilling is sort of the absolute minimal disturbance, and the benefit is that you retain moisture, and in this case wheat, the roots actually follow down all the natural fissures in the soil rather than ripping it all up and messing up the structure of the soil. So hopefully this crop will just get better and better and better as it retains more and more moisture. We've now stopped in an area of the field that was ploughed, and first of all the crops look a lot better, but they may well in time run out of I was going to say run out of steam, not look as impressive because the soil tends to dry out because you've moved the soil to that depth. And something to illustrate that point is here, that there's a crack in the soil that you can see. I've managed to get my hand down, and it keeps going down beyond where I can get my hand. So in time the soil will dry out, the crops will dry out, the grains will become shriveled, whereas the direct drilling area had got the thatch of straw on the top, and the surface of the soil was much wetter than here. And so, and environmentally, direct drilling is so much better, but we have to get the balance between yield and profitability. I'm now standing on a grass margin, and in a way we all think of grass as grass, but there's a whole load of different species here, and I'm not going to identify them. But if I just pick the seed heads up, there's 1 species, 2 species, 3 species, 4 species. Straight in front there's just 4 species, possibly other ones. Oh, there's another one down here, a very pretty one. So even we just think of grass as a green thing growing on the edge as I drop one, but there's all these different types, and they all produce different habitats, different structures. And you can see as I press down here, it's all tussocky, brilliant for beetles to live in. Different again, or you've got your more grasses similar to a lawn. I'm standing here in one of our meadows. This land was bought in 1998, so up until 1998 this was a wheat field. When we took the land, we looked at old maps, and we saw in some dim and distant past there was a hedge that is just about 20 yards the other side of where I'm standing. So we reinstated the hedge, we've reinstated the water meadows, and the purpose of the water meadows are just that. They're water meadows, they're meant to flood in winter. And so during the summer months you can graze them or cut them for hay. This year this one will be cut for hay. The last 2 or maybe 3 years it's been grazed by sheep, very tightly grazed I might add, but now you can see a whole abundance of wildflowers, and then just slightly between us and our neighbours we've got the Bourne Brook that runs through the land. That is a common theme through all of our land at Lark Rise Farm, possibly runs through 3 or 4 miles of the farm, and that does bring a sort of lifeblood to the land, and it's a natural corridor for wildlife to move up and down the brook banks, and indeed fish, otter, etc. to actually move up and down the brook itself. One of the other things we've done along our water meadows is we've reinstated osier beds, and the lime green shorter section are some osiers that would have been cut last year. Osiers are basically willows, and they grow very vigorously, and each year, or maybe not each year, every 3rd year they're cut and the produce goes to make hurdles, baskets, etc. Thank you for coming and looking around Lark Rise. Hopefully you had a lovely day. I've certainly enjoyed showing you round. Why not become a friend of the Trust? And you can find all about us on our website, on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. So once again, thank you for coming, and see you next year.